Good morning, everyone. I'm Ruba. Today my presentation should be about happiness. The happiness comes from your own action. Many homeless people can be happy, though they don't have the lost thing, but they just have to look inside. Nick rejoices he lost his arm and legs, but he doesn't care whatever he lost out of his body. But Nick tried to follow his whatever his heart told to him, and he focused how he can make himself happy. Helping your community can make you happy. You can help your community by volunteer work in your school or your city library, your city public library. Sorry. That will give you experience. Also, that will be a way to become happy. And when you study, you will become a perfect or is a good person. It's not all perfect. You will become a good person, and you will make your you will improve your community. Happiness by support. When you used to dance with your sister or your friends, that will give you a positive energy, and that will give you the positive energy will give you as a happiness feeling. And also you can use a day of a weekend to run with a group of your friends, and that will make you happy also. And always we need to look inside. We don't, please, I have to stop, don't care anyone what you say, just care about yourself. And actually that's my all the presentation of the day. Thank you for listening to my presentation.
All right. You start with the proposition, which is that happiness comes from our own actions. So I think you need to, that's good. It's a clear statement of what your position is. I think you need to explain a little bit about what's controversial about this. Why is this something that we need to make an argument about? I would imagine that most people would probably think the same thing, except for those who are chemically dependent on their happiness. There might be people out there that need some kind of assistance to get happy. But I think most people would probably agree with you. So I'm not sure why we have to have an argument about this. I think you need more context for this position. You need to describe those things where people run into barriers about being happy, where they act in ways that are self-defeating, or some of the materials that they might encounter that tell them that they're not a success or they're not happy if they don't have X, Y, and Z. If you don't have this car, if you don't have this lifestyle, if you don't have this relationship, how can you possibly be happy? And there's plenty of stuff out there that talks about how especially a modern culture like ours is filled with people who are dissatisfied because of, for instance, technology. You go on social media and you look at other people's lives and you say, oh my gosh, they have such wonderful lives, and I don't have all those kinds of things. And that guy's got 300 likes on his picture and nobody likes me at all, and so it's easy for people to get depressed or find a problem in their life. And I think there's an argument to be made here that people kind of create their own unhappiness, or they run into things that make them unhappy. And then you've got a reason why we need to have your argument, and that is that you can control your own happiness. Now, how can you make yourself happy? That's kind of what you're arguing here, is you can make yourself happy. You had an example at the beginning of Nick, I think his name was. I think he was a homeless man. It wasn't quite clear to me. It seemed like you started talking about homelessness and that Nick was the example here, but I didn't get an exact quote. I assumed that he followed his heart, but I don't know. Did he say he was happy? I know that he was missing arms and legs, and he followed his heart, but I don't know how we know that he's happy and what it is that he did that made him happy, and I don't know. I guess the idea here is even in the face of tough situations, somebody can find a way to make themselves happy, and here's an example of that. I think that's the point that you're trying to make there. And I think the example is pretty good, but you need to be clearer about how that example is fitting into your argument. There's no preview of what the supporting points are going to be or what the structure is going to be. So you've got a couple of points I can pick out. The homelessness thing, for instance, I think your argument really needs to be here something that says, even in the face of difficult situations, there are ways to make yourself happy. And then use the example of the homeless person who's managed to do that. So you want a declarative statement for your supporting points. Claims need to be declarative sentences. You have to be saying, X is Y, or this will happen, or this is harmful. I just have a topic word there that's a little bit problematic. Your second point was a little bit more like an argument, and that is that if you have a commitment, if you volunteer, if you do something, that's going to increase your happiness also. And you've got hypothetical examples there of volunteering or studying, and that's going to improve you in some way, but all you have are hypothetical examples. And and it's your conclusion that somebody's going to be happier. I'm sure that there are plenty of people who volunteer and are unhappy and grouse about it all day long, depending upon the circumstance that they're in. You need to find some proof that suggests that people who volunteer, or the higher degree of volunteering that they do, the greater measures of happiness there are. There's all kinds of social research that looks at those sorts of things, and you needed to get some of that data into your presentation. And then at the end, you talk about a potential benefit of happiness. You talk about this energy burst that's going to go on. And so I'm not exactly sure if this is a separate claim or if it's just something that's part of the previous point. But it sounds to me like you're saying one of the advantages of being happy is that it has these consequences that will make you more productive. It'll feed your head and give you some kind of response. But that's all asserted. And there's plenty of stuff, again, on human behavior and anatomy that talks about the kinds of things that produce the effect. Dopamine is produced as a result of some activity or some feeling that we have, and that's the kind of thing that gives us a sense of, like you were talking about, happiness or euphoria or enjoyment out of an experience. And what kinds of things do we get from doing that? Spending time with our friends, or going dancing, or whatever it happens to be. Those are the kinds of things that people ought to take some time to do so they can experience these kinds of things, because then they'll want to repeat that sort of behavior. I think that's sort of where you're going. It just needs to be a lot clearer. All right, thank you.